Underground and overhead utility dangers. My years in the fire service and in and around the plants, I got 100 stories about these. Dump trucks taking out the asphalt plant or the quarry. Boom truck getting into the energized line. The excavator going out there digging before we called ahead. Or not we, the other companies have done that. There's no reason to ever put yourself in this situation of being working close to an overhead line or underground that you don't know it's there. Proper risk assessment. If it's energized line, we're going to call the power company if we got to be close to it and make sure we're doing it right. Rather not even do it. You know, we would rather that the line's killed or dead until we get done with it, but we still have to be around them. And I think this year is the only year that I can remember myself being with Mountain, and we're not done yet, but we haven't took out a blacktop plant with a dump truck. The driver leaves the bed up and take it out. It's a very dangerous situation, so always be aware of the overhead lines. We've tried to sign each place to remind the truck drivers, remind equipment operators that they're overhead. In some of our facilities that are new, we have run underground lines to eliminate that possibility, but then when you go out there digging around, it's still just as dangerous to dig in one as it is to hit it with the crane boom. So make sure that we've done the proper due diligence to find out of any utilities out there when we're working, even on our own property around the plants, that we make sure that we have done our due diligence and checked that out, that there's nothing there hidden that we don't see. We see the power lines, but we still sometimes don't respect them. Seen many of accidents or injuries and fatalities from electric lines. People thinking they're safe. People know of one time that a guy was going to move a line after a storm because he was an electrician, or he thought he was. It was just, that's just the ground line. It's safe. Well, it's not safe because the storm had blown it across the high voltage up the way, so that was very energized. You never know what's going to happen. So any line, phone line, electric line, whatever, you cannot say that it's completely safe to touch or be around without the utility company certifying that. We may take it for granted it's a cable TV line, but none of us are utility experts, and I'm not going to make that call. We just don't do it till we get the proper people there to make sure it's safe to work around.
And the same goes for underground utilities as well. You know, the difference is you can't see it. You know, it may be right in front of you, right underneath your feet, but you don't know it's there unless you call the 811 or find, you know, the utility company,
yeah.
Get a hold of them and find out what's there. They could be gas line, propane, natural gas, water, could be a water line. I mean, all kinds of different dangers underneath the ground you have to be aware of.
Yeah, and we worry about the dangers. Digging into high pressure gas line with a John Deere backhoe, I'd done that once. That was not fun. It didn't catch on fire, but it blew the backhoe up because she started running on natural gas, quit running on diesel, and you couldn't shut her off. She just sat there until the pistons went out the side of it. So I got in trouble over that one. But you're also digging into the cost of it. If you've ever seen somebody dig into these new fiber optics, you're looking at several $100,000 that we would have to pay to have those replaced, and we have done that. So always call before you dig. Call somebody extra if you still ain't comfortable with it, till we make sure we do it right and do it the right way.
Yeah, we couldn't count on all our fingers and toes how many times we've torn something down, dug something up. Seems like underground lines are a magnet for dozer blades and excavator buckets. So to Chase's point, we want to make sure we're calling before we dig, and we want to stay, at a minimum 10 feet away from overhead power lines or any line really, because we don't really know, to JL's point, we don't know what they are. We are not experts. It's not our area. So let's just make sure we stay away from them and get some approval before we go forward.
And a big one, use of personal protective equipment. And this year we have added a bunch to that list. Mostly we worry about hard hats, gloves, ear protection, and eye protection, and safety vest, and then this year comes along and we've got masks and neck gaiters, and all kinds of face shields and all kinds of other stuff that we're not used to using, and we have worked it out and got really good at it. But never go out and do any job, any project, how simple it may be, without the proper PPE. And that covers everything from the right footwear to the right eyewear, to the right pair of gloves, to the right clothes you wear, to the right reflectivity that you're using for to be on the roads or in the plants or in the quarries. The right safety glasses and or face shields, and we try to get the stuff that everybody's comfortable with, what fits, what works, and it's still sort of a living document because new stuff comes out. And as this year, we've had new hazards come out, and so we try to learn and get the right stuff to use.
Then there's no reason that, an employee should go without any PPE, because we have an abundance and we can get it to you, no problem. You just gotta ask.
Yep. I always like to have a variety of different choices for people, whether it's safety glasses or earplugs. Make sure the guys have what they need. And also we ought to be looking at our PPE, before we use it, to make sure it's in good condition. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been out on the job site and seen some paving guys have these vests on. They're not even vests anymore. They're black vests because they've worn them all year. Sometimes they get emotionally attached to their vest, get them at the beginning of the year, but it doesn't do much good if they're not reflective anymore. So we need to make sure that our PPE is in good condition, it's clean, relatively clean, and it can protect us, when we need it most.
As does our hard hats. I think that's overlooked sometimes. I recently watched a video of talking about construction workers, that the different stickers on them are scars and nicks or badges of where we've been, but also, and that's okay. We're proud to wear the hard hats, or I am, but look at them and make sure that over time in the sunlight or getting kicked around and falling off your head, putting too many stickers on them where you can't make sure that they're not cracked. Definitely never paint them to cover it up, just like you wouldn't paint a hammer handle or an axe handle, because then you can't see the cracks. But there's not really an expiration date in a hard hat. There's this common sense date. When it looks like it's not safe to wear anymore, you get another one. We always got them, and we'll get the kind you want and do our very best, the comfortable ones. And then I understand we like putting our stickers on them, but make sure that we put good reflective stickers on them. That is one of the CRH rules, that 360 degrees retro reflectivity on your hard hat. This just adds an extra level of safety. Everybody knows there's a head under that hard hat. So, and we like putting our mountain stickers on them and our safety stickers, and use them for site specific, proving you've been trained. But at some point in time, we get attached to them, and that's fine. When they get too old to use, put it up on the mantle, hang it up on the wall, and be proud of it.
I
And we
believe
get a new
most
one.
of them have the UV indicators on them
Yeah.
now too, that, once that indicator turns pink, it's, they say the manufacturer says it's time to retire. So just keep an eye out, because most of ours have been replaced with the 3M hard hats.
And different tasks require different PPE. Usually it's a hard hat and safety glasses and proper footwear. Sometimes we have to wear gloves. Sometimes we have to wear earplugs. Sometimes we have to wear a face shield, welding goggles, a welding hood, vest, high vis, typically all the time. But there are a variety of tasks that require different PPE and different uses of PPE. So keep that in mind as you get into your job and you get into what you're doing. And if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask.
Safety materials under pressure. We have a lot of those out here that you don't think about. About every place we've got's got air compressors. Every piece of equipment we have has got hydraulic lines on it. They have high pressure fuel lines on it. We have welding or acetylene and oxygen tanks everywhere. And even one of our emergency pieces of equipment that should be everywhere would come under this. If you mistreat it, it can hurt you as a fire extinguisher because it's under pressure. So all of our lines, air lines, and those things that we put the things that anti-whip on them, that if they come loose, they don't whip you and trip you and take you out. We use a lot of, our liquid asphalt. It's under pressure, and if it gets on you, you don't want that to happen. It's all about having the right inspection of doing it. We have people to come out and inspect our larger air compressor tanks and have those replaced. A lot of our compressed gas cylinders, even our fire extinguishers, are only good for so long under pressure, and then they got to be retested. And so we try to do that. If you see a fire extinguisher that's rusty, it may show that it's good, but it needs to be replaced. You see our air compressor tank that's rusty, we probably need to look at and inspect it and maybe replace it, or at least stop the rust and get it painted, or have some of the experts come and look at it. We have the company that comes and checks a lot of them every year. They're due back this year to check some of our air compressor tanks. All that stuff is just it's a cocked cannon. Not used correctly, it can go off and take you out.
Everybody should be trained in some way on the hazards of compressed air, compressed fluid of some form or fashion. We should be looking at our air compressors monthly ourselves to make sure the pop-off valves, emergency valves are working, similar to how we inspect a fire extinguisher. If we're not inspecting our fire extinguishers, we can't expect them to work when we need them. Likewise, a pop valve or a safety valve or an air compressor, if it's not checked and inspected and looked at, we don't know if it's going to work when it's needed. So that's just part of what the program says we should do, and how we should ensure that we're taking care of ourselves every month on these very risky, very hazardous pieces of machinery.
Also with the propane tanks, acetylene tanks, oxygen, make sure they're in the designated area. Make sure they're not scattered out about at your facility, plants. Make sure they're where they need to be.
And secured.
And secured.
Blasting operations, that's an area that we contract out, but as a company, we meet with those guys periodically and go over CRH blasting policies, that they're in compliance with those, plus with the state and federal regulations on those. That our communication that we use when there's going to be a blast at the quarries, we don't have to do that much on the roads. We're not that type of construction company, but we could be out there as a sub for one of those. So that's something to think about being around it. Traveling. I mean, down the Mountain Parkway for the last 2 years, I've seen a few cases where it didn't go as planned and it filled the road up. And so I got to sit there and watch them clean the road for 2 hours because they didn't do something right. But that can happen at our quarries. That's why we meet with our blasting professionals and making sure that the drill logs are communicated to the blaster, and everybody is communicating of the issues that are out there. And you'll notice at our facilities, we post it out for visitors to know that day there's going to be a blast. Because that's an explosion, and we control them, and we do a good job, but it's still something could go wrong, and it could be an uncontrolled blast. So that's why we take the extra precautions and meet all the guidelines of state and federal rules on it. And everybody that comes to those sites where they're at, that's part of your site-specific understanding, the pre-blast procedures, what it means, what it's going to feel like, and then the security of the area where the blast is going to be is of most important. And our challenge is some of our locations that we blast in are tourist sites of people hiking and kayaking and four-wheeling. So we have to go the extra mile of securing those sites and making sure that the people in that area knows that it's a blasting operation. So far we have done a really good job of keeping up with that.
And this is a life-saving rule for a reason, and the first bullet point says blasting policy must be implemented. So we have a very, very detailed, very specific blasting policy, things that we do as an organization. To JL's point, we comply with all the federal and state requirements, but we have our own in-house rules regarding blasting and how we're supposed to do it every day, and we do a good job, and we always do a good job. It's part of how we crush rock. It's the first part of crushing rock, really, if you think about it. But we have gotten sideways before with blasts, and we have put fly rock down on roadways. We put fly rock down on a crushing facility. So it's important that we follow our own rules. That when a blast occurs, there's proper signaling, proper communication, and we're rallying somewhere where everybody knows where everybody is. We're doing a head count, and then we're waiting for the all clear before we go back to work. And JL made a point a couple of life-saving rules ago about lifting. A cardinal rule is we are not present underneath of a load. We're not around a suspended load. We're back away from it. So you guarantee to not get injured if you're not under a suspended load, right? There may be rigging failure, there may be a cable failure, but if nobody's there, nobody's going to get hurt. Likewise, on a blast, there may be a problem if we're all rallied in a safe position. We all know who's there. We have a proper head count. Then nobody's going to get hurt if something or when something goes wrong.